Hi guys, welcome back to another exciting video, so sit back, relax, and let's get started. Lying, it was a concept Nihara Minji was familiar with. A little bit too familiar, it seemed, if it landed her in a police interrogation room, with 8 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of petty theft, and a kidnapping on her head. Look, I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a normal day in Hasu, and bakugou Katsuki was going about his pissy daily life, groceries, errands, crime fighting, yelling at people, whatnot. FRK plastic bags digging into my damn fingers. Who the hell charges 900 yen for polythene? I don't got that much money for a fucking polythene. The weather was hot, and it was Sunday, which meant the market square was crowded with people who were familiar with heroes, and hence wanted an autograph. Before he knew it, Katsuki was being bombarded with random people running at him, pens, and all kinds of objects for him to sign on in their hands. Ground Zero, can I have an autograph, please? I know you don't usually. Shove it. Extra, I'm busy right now, he said, not once looking her in the eye. Mr. Ground Zero, my daughter really wants your autograph. Would you please consider? No, lady, now move it. He didn't like giving autographs to just about anyone who approached him on the street. He wasn't goddamn Deku. You could find that guy's autograph on a street light pole. How much money do you want? I'll pay the amount, no matter how high. I don't want no money. But that was just it. Bakugou needed money, but he wasn't about to admit that to anyone. Not even himself. He'll just fight more crime, earn some dough, and he'll be in his kick-ass villa with a 3-acre lawn soon enough. He turned around and saw a small crowd forming, all of them charging towards him. Damn it. He took off, and he could tell that one of his raw eggs fell as he started flying. He looked down and saw it crashing on the woman who tried to give him money. My hair. I just got it done. He started cackling at that. Serves you right, fucker. All right, gotta get home now. What's the time? He looked down at his watch. FRK. It's already 11. There was a knock on his door. Just as he was getting ready, he was strapping on his gauntlets as he answered the door. What do you want? There was a policeman at the door, a bit younger than him, probably a fresh graduate. Ground Zero, we require your assistance at Hasu Police Center. I'm here to escort you. I don't need no escorting. I'll get there by myself. Who's taking over my shift? Tentacle is taking over your shift, and I'm afraid I will have to escort you. Got him. Listen here, fucker, I'll get there myself. I request you to cooperate. Ground Zero, he was clearly nervous. FRK it, then get in the car, I'm coming. He wasn't going to say no to a free ride unless he had to. He locked his house up. Tossing the key into his pocket, he walked to the car and tried to open the door. It didn't open. Hardhead, if you want to escort me, open the fucking door. Got it. Ground Zero, get in. I'm supposed to give you a briefing. He stepped into the car, and the AC hit him all at once. Maybe it was a good decision to get in this car after all. My name is Satsuin K. I'm a fresh graduate from Tokyo Police Academy. Great, why do I gotta go to the station? Bakugou could tell the mood dipped. Satsuin got visibly tense. We've got a rather strange case on our hands. There is a woman, Nihara Minji. She's been charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder, 1 kidnapping, and petty theft. One of her murders is that of her own son, Nihara Toshiharu. What's strange about that? It's just she has a daughter, and she looks remarkably like you. Silence overtook the car. So you goddamn police think you can waste my time because you got a kid in your custody who looks like me? Huh, what the fuck? I apologize for the inconvenience, Ground Zero, but we need to rule out all possibilities for a case like this. Case like this? What's so special about it? Silence took over once again. FRK, what are you not telling me? If I'm going to help out in this case, I need all the information you got. Ground Zero, you will not be helping in this case. You are being involved purely for ruling out the possibility of Nihara Minji's second child being your child too. I can rule out that shit for you right now. I ain't never met a woman called Nihara Minji, and I ain't never fuck. The car stopped abruptly. We're at the police station. Ground Zero, let's go in. Not before I blast your dead-ass car, fucker. That's police property. Ground Zero, if you cause damage to it, you will be charged. Real fucking confident for a graduate, aren't you? If I blow your balls out, will I be charged for that? Yes. Bakugou was really fucking pissed about this. He had patrol that he was missing, and he was sure that patrol would get him more money than figuring out if some snot rag was his kid. He'd never met a woman called Nihara, whatever her name was. And he didn't go around fucking random women. What kind of crack was Hasu Police Center on? What the fuck do you want from me, Naomasa? I ain't got a child, I can tell you right now. Chipper as always. Ground Zero, we've only called you here for a paternity test. We don't want to take any chances with this case. Why not? Seems simple enough to me. It's really not. Well then tell me, why the fuck you hiding, huh? Naomasa just sighed and took a sip of his coffee. It'll take half an hour. Bakugou, please just make my life easy for once. FRKU. How classy. He followed Naomasa and entered a room, a kind of clinic. There was white light everywhere, and a man in a white coat stood in front of a chair. All right, Ground Zero. This is Dr. Kiniwari. He'll be taking a sample of your BLD for the paternity test. Usually, It takes a few days to get it done. But Dr. Kiniwari here has a special quirk that'll give us results almost immediately. Naomasa yawned and continued, once you're done with depositing your BLD, come outside, and we'll discuss the situation at hand. Hello, Ground Zero, please sit on this chair and give me your arm. Katsuki just about fell onto the chair and raised his hand up for the doctor. How much BLD you gonna take? Not much, Ground Zero, just about a tube full. Get it done with fast. You're quite muscular, Ground Zero, the doctor said, feeling his arm. You're fucking creepy, Kamino. Actually, it's Kiniwari. Do I look like I give a shit? Take the BLD and let me leave, got him it? As you wish. After a moment, Katsuki was looking at a vial of his own BLD and getting up to leave. Ground Zero, you will have the results in about half an hour, thank you. Katsuki grunted and left. Where's Naomasa? He asked a police officer. Right there, sir, she said with a smile on her face. Katsuki shuffled past her. How rude, who does he think he is? That's Ground Zero. Isn't he supposed to be ugly? Yeah, I'm surprised too, I'm telling you. It's that bratty personality'd have ladies all over him if it wasn't for that. Agreed. Alright, Naomasa, I gave my fucking BLD, what do you wanna talk about? Right, Ground Zero, I'll get straight to the point. The child that you have taken the paternity test for is a girl. Her name is Nahara Rin, and she's about 1 year old. Great, on what basis do you even think she could be my spawn? Huh. Here's a picture of her, Naomasa said, sliding over a series of photos to Katsuki. There was a girl in the photos, a little bit too small for someone who was supposed to be a year old. She looked angry in almost all of them. And in one she attempted to punch the person who was taking a photo of her, but the part that struck Katsuki most was her general appearance. She looked exactly like him when he was her age, with her hair spiking in weird ways, and her scarlet eyes narrowed. They both had the same nose, same mouth. The only real difference Katsuki could find was that she was a little paler than him, but maybe he could just blame that on her probably being malnourished. He pulled out the last photo of the bunch, and it was a candid of the little girl. She appeared to be cradling herself. Slumped against a wall, she was staring right at the bright wallpaper of the room she was in, with a completely neutral expression, tears streaming down her face. He felt a sudden need to pick up the child and tell her she was going to be fine, that it was going to be all right. So I'm assuming you know why we decided it was an utmost priority to rule out the possibility, right? Katsuki nodded at him. Yeah, I fucking get it. In the scenario that it turns out Nahara Rin is not your child, she would be a ward of the government and most likely be put into the foster system. However, if it turns out she is your child, you will have all of 3 options, Naomasa said. Well, what the fuck are they, then? The first is that you could go ahead and put her into the foster system anyway, as a ward of the government. The second is that you could put her up for permanent adoption with a parent of your choosing, and then there is the third, where you could adopt her. In the latter option, you will have to incur all the expenses and legal difficulties that come with adoption. With a lawyer provided by the government, you would become her legal guardian and her father. Father, the word seemed to bounce around the walls of the room. Could he be a father? All of his life, he hadn't thought further than getting a kick-ass house with a 3-acre lawn and becoming the #1 hero. He'd assumed that at some point he might find a wife, but that possibility seemed to be slipping away day by day. He'd never even thought about being a parent, much less a single dad. Would he be able to do it? Was he worthy enough to be put in charge of a life? I understand that this is a difficult decision for you, Bakugou. You legally have the next 15 days to decide. And after that, however long it takes for you to complete the legal processes. Detective Naomasa. Yes, Watanabe. The results are here. Katsuki was immediately knocked out of his train of thought. Well, Ground Zero, are you ready? No, Katsuki was not ready. He felt just about ready to puke in a fucking bucket. Would you like us to call someone to support you? No answer. I'm going to take that as a yes. Your emergency contact is Bakugou Mitsuki. Would you like me to call her? No fucking way, anyone but that hag. Alright, your next listed contact is Kirishima Ijiru. Shall I call him? That's fine, I fucking guess. Okay, you can wait here until he comes. Time was ticking by. What the fuck was Katsuki supposed to do? Having a child in his life would be a big change. He wouldn't be able to work as much as he did now. He'd probably have to settle into a good eating routine. And where the fuck would he get the money? Bakubro. Kirishima was here 1 minute he was at the door, and the next he had crash-landed himself onto Bakugou. What the fuck? Shitty hair. Detective Naomasa told me about the kid. Katsuki got up, brushed himself off, and gave a quick glare to Kirishima. Yeah, that's so nice of you to want me here. I didn't want you here. Fucking Naomasa called you. It was either you or the old hag. Oh, not much of a competition then. Not really. Kirishima sat down beside Bakugou, who had sunk back down onto his chair. So, what are you thinking of doing? I don't know. Have you met the kid? No, not once. Do you know what they look like? Yeah, the pictures are there. That kid. Kirishima picked up the pictures. Out of all the things Katsuki expected him to do, smiling was not one of them. But if he was being honest, that was kind of Kirishima's whole personality. Bakubro, the kid looks exactly like you. It's like you, but smaller and with a ponytail. Yeah, I know. Bakugou put his head in his hands. Kirishima looked over at him, and, at that moment, he understood exactly what to say to Katsuki. Katsuki, you will make an amazing dad. I can tell you that for sure. You've been the best at pretty much everything you've tried. And the few times when you weren't, I've seen you work your ass off to become the best, and I know that you will try so hard for this little girl and that she will be lucky to have you as a father. Katsuki picked up a picture of the girl. It happened to be the candid one. There was fear in her eyes. She was so scared. And if he didn't do anything about it, she'd be put into the fucking foster system. She didn't deserve that. Hell, she didn't deserve him as a dad. She should have got better. He didn't have enough fucking money for himself. He didn't have a stable eating or sleeping schedule. He blew up just about a million things a day, and he was really fucking rude, but she had him, and he was going to do his fucking best at making sure he did a good job with this kid. Bakugou looked up at him. Well, it's decided then. That kid's my daughter. Ground zero. The results are ready. Would you like to view them? Katsuki took a deep breath. Here he fucking goes. Well, the paternity test confirms that you are her father, Naomasa said. Have you decided what you're going to do? I'm gonna fucking adopt her. Katsuki was walking alongside Naomasa to go meet his kid for the first time, a kid that he didn't even know existed. Ground zero. Regarding how Nahara Rin was conceived. Look, Naomasa, I'm being fucking honest. I don't go around hooking up with random women, and just to clear up any confusion, I'm gay. I don't hook up with women at all. I hook up with guys. And even at that, the last guy I hooked up with was a really fucking long time ago. Naomasa looked traumatized. Alright, we can discuss that further at a later date. They reached a bright little playroom. The walls were yellow, and the place reeked of plastic and a sweet, sugary scent. He could tell any kid of his would hate the place. Is this where you've been keeping the kid? Yes, these is our children holding after all. He walked in and looked around. The kid sure wasn't anywhere easily spotted. He went all the way to the back of the room, and just as he turned around to go back to the front, he heard a noise. He backtracked and looked at the corner next to him. There she was. She was all crumpled up against two walls and was angry, but also sort of terrified. A piece of his heart broke. She looked exactly like he did back when he was screaming at his mother, not knowing what she would do to him, but screaming at her anyway. Don't come near me. I'll punch you. I'll blow you up. All right, I won't. He sat down, cross-legged, almost a foot away from her. Is this fine? I could go farther if you wanted. She looked him up and down and retreated further into her corner. It's fine, I guess. What's your name? I don't know. Katsuki was a bit shocked. How did the kid not know her name? It was nearly ridiculous. So, what did your mom call you? I don't want to say it. It was a bad word. Katsuki wanted to kick her mom's ass. All right, kid, your name is Rin. Do you want to change it? She crawled closer, and he could finally see her face. There was soot on her nose, and a bruise next to her eye, which was barely noticeable. She had scratches everywhere, and her hair was messy and unkempt. But as he looked into her eyes, he felt like he was looking into the mirror, as he did every morning. My name is Rin. Yes. Did mom give me that name? Yeah, she did. Can I change it, please? Of course. What name do you want? I don't know. You can pick. She retreated back into the corner. Great, whatever little progress he'd made was lost. What's your name, sir? Katsuki chuckled a bit. You don't have to call me sir. I'm your dad, but you don't have to call me that either. My name is Bakugou Katsuki. You're my dad. Yes. Where are you? She asked. She looked up at him like her life depended on the answer to that question. Katsuki considered his options. Either he could just make up a fairy tale story for the kid, or give her the truth head on. Well, actually, I didn't know you existed, but now I do, and I don't plan on ever leaving you again. Really? You won't leave me again? Not at all. Does that mean I don't have to go to mom? No, not ever. She came out of the corner. Standing up, she was just about Bakugou's height while he was sitting down. Bakugou Katsuki. I like that name. Can my name be Katsuki? Well, what do you like about my name? How it sounds, I guess. Which part? The first part. The K. Yeah, I like that. Would you like your name to be K? It's spelled K-E-I. I like K, but I like the rest of your name too, if that's fine. So you want her name to be Katsuki? Yeah, Katsuki Bakugou. It's got a nice ring to it. I know. I came up with it, after all, she said. Bakugou saw more of himself in her with every passing moment. Would you like me to call you K, since it's shorter than Katsuki? It can be your nickname if you want. Yeah, I like K. Can I call you Dad? Katsuki looked at her. This kid, probably having gone through so much, was putting every inch of trust in her little body all into him. She was going to call him Dad. It hadn't been 15 minutes since they'd met, and she was okay with calling him Dad. She wanted to. He couldn't believe it. Of course, kid. Bakugou walked out of the station, having promised Kay that he'd get her ice cream when he'd asked Kay if she wanted ice cream. She was unaware as to what it was. Katsuki wanted to kick her mother's ass. Just as he was walking down to the ice cream truck, drinking from a bottle of water, something crash-landed on him. Becca bro, what do you decide to do? If I can adopt her, hardhead, what else would I have done? Get the fuck off me, now. Wait, so I have a niece now. The fuck do you mean niece? You'll be lucky if you get to meet her, shitty hair. I'm getting her ice cream. Get the fuck out of my way. Aw, that's adorable, but can I really not meet her? Katsuki looked at Kirishima. He was pulling a weird look, one of sincerity, but also sadness. You're a fucker, you can stand outside the room. Let's go. After very reluctantly leaving Kei behind with Kirishima, Katsuki walked to Nihara Minji's interrogation room, alongside Naomasa. So this woman is Kei's mother. Yes, along with her other charges, she also appears to have killed her older son, who is probably a brother to Nihara Rin. Oh, also, Naomasa, I asked the little snot she changed her name to Bakugou. Katsuki will get legal with it after a fucking while, but call her that until it's officially done. Alright, thanks for the information. We're mainly bringing you along to confirm that you have never seen this woman before. You fucker, I already told you I'm gay. And I'm not insinuating otherwise, I just need to know if you've ever seen this woman before. We don't know her quirk yet, and I would like to keep such information in my back pocket during the investigation. Who knows? It might come into use. I'll come along, but on one fucking condition: you let me talk to her, unsupervised, 15 minutes. Impossible, no way. Well, I'm not fucking coming then. Naomasa, that's very, very illegal. You know what's illegal and possibly scandalous? You detained a kid in your custody for more than 14 days without informing anyone, and what's even more scandalous, the fact that she's my kid. You wanna take your chances. Naomasa pinched his forehead. Well, ground zero. Can't say no to that, but 10 minutes on the clock is the best you're getting, nothing more. Bakugou smirked. Looks like you're useful after all, Naomasa. I really, really don't want to be here right now. Well, guess what? Fucking Sherlock. Neither do I. 807 hours. Commencing interrogation number 2 of Nihara Minji. Present interrogators: Detective Naomasa, Detective Hikari, Police Officer Watanabe, and Pro Hero. Ground zero. Naomasa sat down on a chair opposite the woman Katsuki assumed was Nihara Minji. She looked conventionally attractive. That much was for sure. She had brown hair and pale skin. Her eyes, however, were of a weird, swimming green color. Nihara Minji, we have a few questions to ask you. First of all, have you decided to confess to the murder of your son, Nihara Tashiharu? Nihara tugged on her hands, which were handcuffed to the table. She bent her head down, looking at the dirt, gray floor. How many times do I have to tell you guys? Why on earth would I murder my boy? That's plain crazy, and I don't know what to tell you anymore. Why won't you believe me? We won't believe you because we have evidence. We wouldn't mind telling you the sheer amount of evidence we have. Nihara, we wouldn't go about blaming a mother for her son's murder on baseless reasons, Naomasa said. In a perfectly neutral voice, he looked straight at the woman's head, even as it was bent down. Nihara looked up, and Katsuki saw a crazed expression in her eyes. She started struggling even harder against her chains. Let me out of here. I've done nothing wrong. You have no reason to accuse me of anything. Naomasa looked cool as ever, but Katsuki could tell he was starting to get annoyed. Our reasons are, Nihara, that all the 7 people in your circle are now dead over just 6 months, and all 7 of these people are either rich keyballs from Korea or socialites and philanthropies from Japan, and you were nothing but a maid over a year ago, and started rubbing shoulders with such people in such a short time. So, I brought myself up in the world. I won the goddamn lottery, and I didn't spend it on just anything. And it isn't my fault if all 7 of them ended up dead. How are you concluding this? Naomasa kicked his chair back. Well, Nihara, seems we are getting nothing out of this session. We'll be taking a break. Until then, you will have 10 minutes with Pro Hero. Ground zero. 827 hours. Concluding interrogation number 2 of Nihara Minji. All the present people left the room, leaving only Katsuki in it. Naomasa peeked his head into the room. 10 minutes on the clock. Ground zero, that's it. Katsuki pulled the chair Naomasa was sitting on and took his seat rather loudly. Nihara seemed a bit startled by him. You're a pro hero? Yes. Ground zero. Sir, you have to help me. These people have detained me for no reason. Shut your trap. I don't give a shit about you. I give a shit about how the fuck I have a daughter who I don't know about, was born in the first place. Just what the fuck did you do, huh? Nihara quietened down. She looked back down at the tiles, shaking her head back and forth. Eyes up here. Woman, you better fucking tell me or you will not like what I'll do to you in the next 9 minutes. Nobody will have any idea what'll go on in this room, and I'm not the goddamn police to have protocols. Nihara looked up at that, and Katsuki maintained eye contact with her, and he saw fear blossoming in her eyes. I can and I will harm you beyond measure. My quirk is that I can construct cells. And how the fuck does that answer my question? I got some of your BLD from your fight with Pierce, and I took it to my lab and deconstructed it until I had your DNA, and I'm sure you can tell what I did from there. Katsuki was sick to the stomach. She had created a kid of his from his BLD, and that's it. Logically, there was pretty much nothing he could have done to prevent it, but it just felt so wrong. Why the fuck did you pick me, Beach? I've always had a crush on you. I saw you at UAS Sports Festival, and I just fell in love. I just had to have you. He couldn't take it. He had to puke somewhere. He got out of his chair, turning himself the other way, anything to not look at her. So, what are you gonna do with Rin? Nihara asked. Katsuki turned back to her and started walking towards her, fast he bent over the table and put his hand right in front of her face. One explosion from me, and your eye is blown out, and I can go a lot fucking further than that if you ever manage to get out of jail. You better not fucking come looking for her. Otherwise, you'll have me on your trail, and you should fucking tell me now if she's in any danger. Danger? There's no danger at all. Why would I put my daughter in danger? Nihara answered, her face a picture of innocence. You fucking beach. That kid didn't know her name. She had bruises and scars all over, and she was wearing a fucking pillowcase for clothes. And you, a woman who's murdered her fucking son, expect me to believe that you wouldn't put her in danger? Katsuki was damn near ready to blow up on the woman. He didn't care what Naomasa said. The satisfaction would be well worth it. Time's up. Ground Zero, get away from her. You've done enough illegal stuff as is. FRKU, Naomasa. Katsuki reluctantly left the room. And as he looked back at the wretched woman one last time, there was a chilling smile on her face. He wanted to punch her teeth out. My part of the deal's done. Ground Zero, your move now. The fuck do you mean? My part of the deal was not telling people how dumb you goddamn police are, nothing else. And nothing more. Naomasa stood in front of Katsuki. Naomasa was at least half a head shorter than him. Look, Bakugou, you have to tell me if you found out anything. Anything at all during the time you had with her. This case is important, far-reaching, and influential. The people she's murdered aren't ordinary middle-classers. They're keyballs and elites from all parts of Asia. We cannot let this blow over into a scandal. Katsuki was presented with the perfect opportunity. Important, far-reaching, and fucking influential. I'm not going to throw away information for no worth. Let's make a real deal this time around. Let me work on the case. I give you your precious information. I'm not going to do that. I know what her quirk is. Naomasa was taken aback. How did you even? Katsuki cracked his neck. Don't question my methods, policeman. Naomasa seemed to consider it. Knowing her quirk would mean almost 50% of the case was solved. Just like that. I'll pay you instead. How much money do you want? Katsuki started walking. Hold on, where are you going? Somewhere where I won't waste my fucking time. All right, fine, I'll get you on the case. Katsuki turned around. I want it legally. And I want good pay. Get me the papers by this evening. And then you get your information, and don't ever fucking send anyone from your goddamn station to escort me. I'll explode their face next time around, and I'll be fucking waiting on your legal help for the goddamn paperwork for K. Naomasa massaged his temples again. You're going to give me a heart attack? Katsuki approached the children's holding, and just as his hands touched the metal, he hesitated. Was he going to do this? Adopt a daughter, a whole child? She was going to be only his responsibility. She'd change his life forever. He wouldn't be able to work as much, forget any kind of eating outside with the money he'd be spending. And he'd be responsible for how she'd turn out. Would he be able to be a good father? What if he screwed up? And then he heard a sound. It was beautiful, and it was Kay laughing. He opened the door. All right, Kay, this is your house from now on, Katsuki said, getting out of the police vehicle Naomasa had so kindly chartered for him. The little girl looked around, her little blonde head looking as high as it possibly could to the tip of his apartment. He snorted. Don't expect too much, kid. We're on the 3rd floor, not the 30th. I don't like heights, she said, looking at the ground. Well, that's good for us then, he said, looking at her and smiling at her. He walked in through the corridor and got into the elevator. Kay looked around. What is this thing? It's called an elevator. Have you never been in one? No, I use the stairs. Well, starting now, we're going to use the elevator. As Katsuki pressed the buttons, he could see Kay looking at them in interest. You want to press the buttons? All of them after the 3rd floor. If you won't be a menace to society, kid. She reluctantly raised her hand to the buttons. She pressed down on the 4th floor, and she was startled when it lit up red. That's interesting. She pressed all the buttons until the 7th floor before she retreated to his side. The elevator doors creaked open. So to get to our house, kid, we gotta take this left, and the 3rd apartment there is ours. She didn't respond, besides a feeble nod. Bakugou took his keys out of his pocket and unlocked the door. He stepped in, removing his shoes. Remember to remove your shoes, kid. Okay. She took her shoes off in a painstakingly slow process, during which the soles for one of them came off. Her eyebrows were furrowed because of it, and she had a remarkable frown on her face. Katsuki was very amused. Don't get so upset over it. We're getting you a new everything anyway. Oh, you don't have to. So do you want to keep wearing this pillowcase? Kay looked down at her clothes. White and stained and very shapeless. It seemed she found the comparison amusing, as she started to smile a bit. No, not really. Kay, if you want something, you just gotta ask. I'll give it to you. Thanks. Her head was still down, looking at the tile. All right, kid. We've got 2 rooms. One's gonna be yours. It used to be my office, so it's got lots of books and shit. I mean, stuff until we finish moving you in. Try not to touch anything on the desk. There are inks and laptops and all kinds of stuff there, but right now, I'm gonna take you to my room since it's got a bed. Okay. Katsuki walked her over to his room. It had 1 window and enough space for a queen-sized bed and a medium wardrobe. If he got her a smaller desk, You like this room? I like the window, she said, gradually touching the warm glass. Katsuki caught himself just looking at the little girl, and how reluctant she was to even touch a piece of glass. Just what had Nahara fucking done to his kid? You want to rest before we go shopping, or you want to go now? Katsuki asked, setting the bed for her. Want to rest, Kei said, looking up at him. All right, want me to stay or go? Is it fine if you stay? No problem. Kei settled into the bed, and Katsuki pulled the comforter over her head. He took a seat in his office chair, facing her, seeing as she moved around for a bit before completely passing out. He had a lot of work to do. For one, he'd have to find a way to take her to the furniture store without the media figuring out about it. He didn't want more targets on Kei's back. After the impression he'd gotten from Nahara, maybe I could put a wig on her. He imagined Kei waddling around the furniture store with a blue-haired wig. Why did he even have a blue-haired wig in the first place? That's right, Dunce Face. Wait, Dunce Face, who had a kid, who was also blonde and whom the media was aware of. Katsuki picked up his phone, deciding to call in a favor. You ready, kid? Katsuki asked. As he saw Kei emerge from his room, she still had the blanket wrapped around her, and her hair was sticking up even more. She blinked at him. He shook his head. For going everything shopping, you ready? Yeah, shouldn't I wear better clothes? Right, Katsuki thought about it. You know what, Kei? Katsuki went to his wardrobe, a pair of scissors in hand, with Kei waddling behind him in her cocoon of blankets. Pick out the shirt you like, Kei. What are you gonna do with it? Cut it up so you have clothes now. Which one do you like? Kei let the blanket fall from her shoulders and stepped toward the wardrobe. She moved around the clothes a little bit and pulled out a shirt. A black shirt, with a white skull on it. Katsuki fought a courageous battle that day, one between the part of himself that wanted to be a good dad, and the part of him that was sure that that shirt was the one thing he loved from the bottom of his heart more than his mom. All right, kid, what pants? She moved around the clothes a bit more. That one. It was a pair of gray sweatpants. At least it wasn't something he held dear to his heart. Let's get fucking a fudging cutting. Then he pulled out the scissors. You sure you want this shirt, Kei? Yep, I like it. He laid the shirt on a nearby table. Looking at its full-sized glory, he put the scissors under it and started cutting. Every time he cut and release, he could see a jagged edge on the fabric. And he kept doing it until he held a strip of black, comfortable cloth in his hands. Gimme the pants. He put his hand out. Kei reached over to the closet and tugged at the sweatpants. They won't come off. All right, 1 second, kid. Katsuki went over to the closet and pulled the sweatpants out. He repeated the process of cutting them, and soon enough he had shorts and a t-shirt. It's too wide for you, he said, looking at Kei and the clothes in his hands. Kei fished around the floor of the wardrobe. There's a belt. Oh well, I mean fudging guess that'll work. Okay, kid, there's the room. Just go put this on and I'll take care of styling them for you, so you don't look homeless, he said absent-mindedly, as he prepared a paper bag and his credit card for some heavy hits. But I am homeless, he heard Kei say behind him in a very tiny voice. He turned back around, looking at Kei, who was looking at the floor, head drooped. I don't have anywhere to go, and I'm not going back to mom. Katsuki knelt so he met Kei's eye level, and took her hand. She flinched a little, and another piece of Katsuki's heart broke. This kid was gonna make him soft. Kei, this is your home no matter what. I'm your dad. The only reason that you had to go through all of what you did was because I didn't know. Otherwise, you'd have been with me a long, long time ago. I'm not going to leave you anywhere without coming back free. Kei finally looked at him, and away from the tile. All right, only if you promise. Katsuki chuckled lightly. Great. Now this kid was making him chuckle. I promise. She took the clothes into the room, and after a concerningly long amount of time stepped out. I put them on, but they're very loose. The clothes were almost falling off of her small form. Each leg of the shorts was wider than both her legs put together, and she was half the width of the shirt. Katsuki wanted to laugh, but he shouldn't be hurting the kid's esteem, presumably. He took the belt that Kei had pulled out earlier and strapped it around her waist. At least the shirt looked more like a cool dress now. The top part of the shorts was hidden, making the bottom peek out just a bit. Matching the frayed style of the shirt, he held Kei's hand, locking the door behind him. As he got out, he looked down at the front area, looking at her shoes, a rubbery mess with a picture of a unicorn on them somewhere. We can't let you wear those shoes. I don't have other shoes. Well, since we're flying anyways, you can wear your socks, and the moment we get to the store we buy shoes. We're flying. What does that mean? It means you have to wait until you find out and hold on very tight when you do. Okay. He took the elevator again, and when they stepped out of the lift, he let her press all the buttons again. It brought a very adorable, one-tooth-less smile to her face. He was surprised he didn't notice the missing tooth earlier. They got off the elevator, and Katsuki knelt to her level again. All right, time to fly. I'm gonna give you a piggyback. You're gonna hold on real tight, okay? Kei nodded and got on his back, her hands wrapping around his neck. You're ready? Yep. Katsuki took off, After a rather eventful flight to the clothing store, Kay was finally in some new clothes and shoes. He'd gotten her a wardrobe full of Ground Zero merch, and she loved the color scheme right now. She was wearing an orange shirt with some black slack pants, and he'd gotten her hair to behave as well as it possibly could. He'd discovered that while the top of her hair was very much like his, pointing in different places and quite spiky, the rest was straight. It was rather unique. He'd figured out more of her personality, too, while she was quiet when he'd first met her, using only limited vocabulary and words. Now she had opened up quite a lot, but she was still absolutely glued to Katsuki's side. She wouldn't leave unless she had to. He wasn't complaining. "All right, Kay, we're going to get to the furniture shop and get you a bed and a closet. That good. Are we flying again?" she said, looking up at him with hope in her eyes. "Well, we don't have a car, so..." "Yeah." After a quick trip to the furniture shop, during which Katsuki had bought Kay a queen-sized bed, she loved the queen part of it, and a closet, he was well on his way to getting home. However, the problem he was currently facing was that it was rather hard to haul a whole bed, closet, and 5-year-old child across the sky using his explosions, and he certainly wasn't going to walk the whole way. His house was almost an hour away. He could call a cab and somehow try to fit the closet and Kay into it, but he wasn't sure about leaving the kid alone. Another option was making several trips. But he wasn't about to leave his very expensive furniture out on the streets, and he wasn't going to go back to that furniture shop. Kay had dropped an extravagantly priced ceramic vase, and he'd very narrowly avoided paying for it. "Hey Dad, how are we going to get home?" And there was that to get used to. While he was elated that Kay was calling him Dad, which after his research he'd found was not common amongst abused children, he wasn't familiar with the term, yet he almost felt like an outsider to it. "Dunno, kiddo, I'm trying to figure out how to do that." Kay looked around for a bit. "Can we ask someone for help?" "Absolutely not." "But why?" "We need help." "No, we don't. We'll figure it out ourselves." "Can we call Uncle Ig?" "Uncle Ig? He got you to call him that?" "Huh." Katsuki chuckled under his breath. "Can we call him, please?" "I'll like that." "No, kid, he doesn't have a car, and I don't think he can lift these things any better than I can. I might as well just do it myself." Kay looked him up and down, apparently deciding that he was unworthy to carry her queen bed. "You can't carry my queen bed. It has to be carried by a queen." "How is Uncle Ig going to help with that?" "He's a queen." "Yep. And I'm not." "No." Why was Katsuki taking offense to this? He looked to the sky, wondering just what his life had come to, and when he looked down, he couldn't find Kay anywhere. Immediately, he leaped into panic mode. He was already on high alert about people going after his daughter because of what Gotham Nahara had said to him. Was he so incompetent that she'd been taken from him right under his nose? "Dad, I found a queen. She can float things as well." He heard Kay's voice from far behind him. He felt a sense of relief wash over him, followed by mercy for the innocent woman Kay had dragged over. Now he'd have to either fight off her awkward offers to help, or have her ooh and ah over how cute Kay was. He did not expect her to bring round face over. "And where's your dad, little one?" "He's right there," Kay said, pointing at him from afar. It took them an awkward while to walk over, as they were not far enough for him to pretend he hadn't seen them, and not close enough to walk quickly. Katsuki hadn't seen Uraraka in a long while. About 6 years. The last he'd heard of her was that she'd moved overseas for some hero opportunity, and after that, he'd just about forgotten her existence. "Bakugou, been a long while. Didn't you move?" Round face. She hadn't changed a lot. Her hair was still the same. If a little shorter, she was still muscular, but that had always been there. Maybe she'd started to show it off a bit more, rather than hide it. He didn't really care. "Oh, I moved back after a year. Didn't like it, you know. It's a bit too cold in Albania." She was at a comfortable distance now. Kay started running to him, reaching him in a few seconds. "That's your niece or something?" she asked, clearly surprised at him being in the presence of a child. He considered it should he tell her she was, in fact, his niece. But why would he? If he had a kid, he was going to be damn proud about it. "She's my daughter, damn it." A look of surprise made its way onto her face. "What's wrong with that, huh?" Round face. "Oh, nothing at all. Just a bit unexpected, is all." "And why would that be, huh? You think I can't be a dad?" "Oh no, I think you're doing a pretty good job at it," she said, looking at Kay, who had tightly grasped Katsuki's pant leg. "She can float our thingies. She's got a car as well. We can sit in it. We'll find another way." Ochako was just about ready to laugh. He hadn't changed at all still. The very same Bakugou who was unwilling to accept any help at all. "Come on, Bakugou, your daughter really wants me to do it. Besides, I can just float your furniture to your house. My house is an hour away and I don't need any help, damn it. But you'll have to fly a lot." "I don't mind." "It's okay, Bakugou. I don't mind. I've just made a quick trip to this store to buy a couple of bedsheets for my son." "You got a son?" Katsuki was surprised. To be fair, it had been a long time since he'd met her. She might have had a kid, but with whom? Should he ask? "Yeah, I think he's the same age as her daughter. His name's Hazui. Oh, now you have to meet him. Please, Bakugou. It'll be so much fun." Bakugou glared at her. "No way in fuck fudge." "Oh damn it. Bakugou, I'm taking your daughter. You can come along if you want." Suddenly, Ochako was taking Kei by her hand to her vehicle and Kei was very happy about it. Who the hell gave you the right to do that? Huh. Kei screamed back. I said she's a queen. She's just taking me to her carriage, Dad. You should come too. Oh damn it. Ochako had figured out a creative way to haul all their furniture using float. She kept the furniture at a comfortable height in the sky, moving with their car. My apartment's on Hananeki Street. Oh, we're not going to your apartment just yet. I'm taking your daughter to meet my son. It's been too long, bakugou, and I need him to make some friends. Well, can't your goddamn son make his own friends? Ochako went a little quiet at that. Katsuki decided not to push. Katsuki looked down at his daughter. It had been maybe a few hours since he'd met her, and he was already being damn near abducted by Round Face. After a while, Ochako asked, "What's your daughter's name?" Katsuki was about to answer, but Kei decided to. My name's Bakugou Katsuki, but you can call me Kei. Oh, that's adorable. You can call me Auntie Acha. Great, it's been 6 hours, and Kei already has one aunt, one uncle, and one potential friend, more than Katsuki had in his entire life at her age. They eventually pulled up to Ochako's house. It wasn't very extravagant by any means, but big enough, bigger than Katsuki's shabby apartment. That's for sure. Not that he was going to admit it. He held Kei's hand to the porch until the porch, as she looked around in wonder. Izuku, I've brought guests. Ochako called out. Wait, what the fuck? You got a kid with Deku? Katsuki shrieked. Outside stepped a very tall Deku, wearing an apron with the words, "Kiss the cook," written on them. Kakin, for the 4th time in the day, Katsuki wanted to puke. Got him it, Round Face. Couldn't you have told me you got a kid with him before you dragged me to your damn house? Oh well, it's not a matter of me not being able to do it, more of a matter of me not doing it deliberately. Damn you. Meanwhile, Izuku had run to Katsuki, and he was just an inch taller than him, and before he knew it, he was toppled over by Izuku, crashing into him for a hug. Damn it, Deku. Some warning would be nice. Kakin, I haven't met you in so long. Oh, I thought you'd moved away. You live so close. That was a lie on Katsuki's part. And he may have just forgotten about it. About 6 years ago, he'd just graduated and he needed some space from everyone in his life. He'd just about run away from his mother's house, intending to get his own goddamn place, away from her expectations and screaming. And the cheapest place he found was quite far from all his friends, who were choosing to stay with their parents until they had enough money to spend on their own house. He didn't want Deku to follow him to the dingy neighborhood. Goddamn weakling would have fainted at the tobacco-stained walls, so he just simply told him he had moved away from Musutafu, all the way to Hokkaido, so he wouldn't follow him. I moved back. Dumbass can't tell that much. Oh, I'm so happy you did. You have to come and I made lunch. I'm hungry, Dad. Izuku looked down and saw Kei. Is that your niece? What the fuck, fudge? I don't even have a sibling. She's my damn daughter. Idiots. You have a daughter. Izuku knelt to her level. What's your name? Kei, practically bouncing, said, Bakugou Katsuki. Your name's just like your dad's. Huh. Yeah, that's why I got fuck, she said, with a childish innocence. If Katsuki had reasons not to scold her, one of them would be the multitude of emotions going through Deku's face as Kei said the word. That's a bad word, Kei. Just because I say it, you can't say it, Katsuki said. But I want to say it. Alright, a cooler way to say it is fudge. Say that instead. But I want to say fuck. Ochako picked Kei up. That word is for older, boring people like your dad. Fun people say fudge. Really, Aunt Acha? Really? Alright, I'll say fudge. Good job. Kei, will you apologize to Uncle Izu? Kei was put down by Ochako, and she waddled her way over to Izuku. I'm sorry for saying fuck, Uncle Izu. Katsuki internally groaned. Gee, that's fine, Kei. You want to come in and have lunch? Yeah. Ochako smirked at Katsuki as Izuku carried Kei in. Katsuki followed them in, seething with rage. Stepping in through the porch, Katsuki discovered that the house was decorated rather nicely. There was a wide TV, a green couch, a pink kitchen, and a wooden dining table, which was set with delicious-looking dishes. There appeared to be 3 rooms, and out of one of them, a little boy emerged. He had dark green hair and a darker skin, taking after Izuku, and as Katsuki looked closer, he noticed the kid had 2 different colored eyes, one brown, like Ochako, and one green, like Deku. Ochako sat Kei down on the dining table, turning to the boy. It's time for lunch. We got a new friend for you. Oh hi, the kid absent-mindedly said, looking down at a picture book of some kind. Izuku picked the little boy up, put him on the chair next to Kei, and sat down himself. Kakin, come and sit. I made katsudon. Alright, I'm coming, damn it. Katsuki sat next to Kei, who was strangely approaching her food. It appeared she didn't know what this food was. What is this? Oh, it's katsudon. It's pork cutlet, some egg, and rice, Katsuki answered. It looks nice. Thank you, Kei. Try it and tell me how it tastes, Izuku said. Kei bowed. How did she have manners? And politely ate the food. It's very nice. You must take some more. Then I'll give you some when you're done, Ochako spoke. After a while, Kei looked next to her. What's your name? I'm Bakugou Katsuki. My name's Hazue. How old are you? I'm turning 6 in June. Oh, I'm turning 6 in December. We're the same age. I like that. I see. So, what do you like to do? I like reading. And, reading. It seemed that Hazui wasn't the most social kid. As opposed to Katsuki, it was rather surprising that it was Izuku and Achako's kid who didn't speak much, and Katsuki's who did. She was practically a social butterfly. I like to, fly. You can fly. Finally, there was some excitement in the little boy's eyes. No, I can't. My dad can. Though he takes me flying. Same, my dad and mom can fly. That's so cool. You know, your mom floated all our furniture here. The kids started chattering actively, with Hazui engaging in conversation a lot more since the mention of flying. So, bakugou, who's the father? She doesn't have one. When did you have her? Today. What do you mean today? She looks the same age as Hazui. Why are you prying so much? Frkin chill. Kakin, what happened? Tell me. Katsuki huffed. All right. Damn it, some freak villain somehow got her hands on my DNA, and using her quirk, she had a kid 5 years ago. Tsukachi found her, and she had a kid who looked a lot fucking like me. So they brought me over to the police station, did a paternity test. Turns out she's mine. Izuku looked sympathetic. Katsuki had eventually, in their teenage years, apologized to Izuku. He'd even tried calling him Izuku for a while, but both of them agreed it was very weird after that. He'd genuinely gotten to know Katsuki better, leading Katsuki to eventually be fine with any emotion Izuku portrayed. Right now, sympathy was kind of what he felt for himself, so he let it slide. That's tough. Kakin, so how are you doing with her? I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time, but I'll fucking figure it out. You love her more than anything else, don't you? Katsuki had no idea why he didn't have a harder time saying yes. By the time lunch was over, it seemed like Hazui and Kei were very good friends. Dad, I have to see Haz again. I have to, Kei said, tugging at his pant leg. She was starting to make it a habit. And surprisingly, he didn't really mind. Oh, got him it, brat. We'll see him again. Kei looked happy, having gotten what she wanted. She turned back around for the 4th time. Bye, Haz. I'm coming back to tomorrow. Hazui just cried in his dad's arms. It seemed that he'd inherited the traditional Midoriya tears. Bye Ki. Bye Kachin. Katsuki looked ahead at the car, in which Achako was starting to float all the furniture again. It was almost night by the time Katsuki stepped foot into his apartment. He was carrying Kei in his arms. As she'd fallen asleep halfway, he'd also talked to Achako, who gave him some rather useful advice about parenting a 5-year-old, although he'd never really tell her that. He slowly put aside his shoes, careful not to wake Kei. She'd had an eventful day, what with meeting her father for the first time, meeting a new friend, 2 uncles and 1 aunt, and a new apartment, and she was calling him dad, and he was slowly getting used to it. He sat down on the sofa, laying Kei down next to him. I'll just nap for a little while. Unaware, Kei put her head on his shoulder. Katsuki smiled. It was just about 6 in the morning when Katsuki woke up. He sluggishly made his way to Kei's bedroom, peeking through the door to see her passed out on her bed, not unlike a starfish. Kei had been adjusting pretty well. It had been close to 2 months since he'd adopted her. The paperwork had been hard. That much he'd admit. But the Todorokis were more than happy to lend him their lawyer after he'd aided them in their case against Endeavor. Favors do help. Even so, he still hadn't legally changed her name to Bakugou Katsuki, which was one of his top priorities for the day. Setting the coffee to heat on the stove, he pulled out his phone, making a quick to-do list for the day. 1. Drop Kei at daycare 8 a.m. 2. Sort out her birth certificate and name change. 3. Patrol with burn-in. 4. Agency paperwork for new hires. 5. Interviews for new hires. 6. Visit to bank. 7. Pick Kei from daycare 1 p.m. 8. Drop Kei and Haz at Midoriya's plus have lunch with Midoriya's 3 p.m. 9. Meet Old Hag. He looked down at the last item on his list. He'd decided it was high time that he decided to tell his mother that he had a daughter, and subsequently, Mitsuki was a grandmother. In all honesty, Katsuki's relationship with her was complicated. While he didn't hate her to the point of wanting to cut off all contact, she certainly hadn't done even a decent job at raising him. He couldn't count on a single hand how many birthdays she'd missed, and not even followed up on whenever it was a weekend and UA forced their students to return home. He usually texted his mom saying he had to do extra training. But that was if she asked in the first place, which was a rare occurrence. He was rather hesitant about having his mom meet Kei. Of course, she would judge the fact that Kei didn't have a mother. She would probably go off on a rant about how Katsuki wasn't giving her a normal life and that Kei should just come and live with her and his old man, not that they'd do any better than him at all. Kei had started to trust him, and if that meant she was progressively getting louder and friendly and happier, and maybe a bit hard to handle, Katsuki was happy. At least she'd come out of her shell still. He'd set aside a fund to get her a decent therapist, and it was going to be enough at the end of this month, and she could finally start going to therapy, which he believed was wholly necessary. Looking down at his coffee, he decided it was warm enough. He took the vessel off the stove, letting it cool on the counter for a while. He walked back to Kei's room, peeking back in. She was awake, for sure, As she sat up on her bed, still in her covers, just staring at the wall, that was part of the reason why Katsuki wasn't ready to believe she was all fine just yet. While it was far-fetched and unlikely, there was certain chance that on some level, Kay was just faking getting better so he wouldn't get worried. He knocked lightly at the door. "You up, brat?" She turned around, and her face morphed from a blank expression to a smile. "Yeah, I'm hungry." "All right, twerp, let's get you some food." She practically bounced out of the bed, skipping her way towards him and holding her hand out for him to hold it. Strange. It was about 7:30 when Kay emerged from her room, fed, bathed, and all dressed up. It seemed that she liked the Ground Zero colors, but one of her other favorite heroes was Logical Ruse, for reasons unknown. And hence she had asked for merch. That was why she was currently wearing a majorly black Ground Zero shirt with some purple pants. If Katsuki was being honest, she had fashion sense much better than all the other snotty 5-year-olds at that daycare. What with their red and murky green dresses and khaki pleated shorts, he was damn proud of Kay. "You ready to leave?" "Yeah, let's go." She skipped towards him, holding out her hand to him, and he took it. They walked out of the apartment, with Katsuki throwing the keys into his pocket. In the elevator, Kay pressed all the buttons once they'd left, and he'd flown her to the daycare, which was just about 15 minutes away by flight. Landing by the side of the road, he walked her over to the colorful building. "Be good for your teacher, okay? And take care of Heizue." "Yeah, I will. I'm gonna have so much fun." He looked at the woman he'd been dropping his daughter off to. She looked nice enough. Probably a fresh graduate. She'd liked Kay since the first day, and he'd had a nice, long conversation with her about keeping Kay safe and the consequences if she wasn't. She hadn't really liked him since then. Waving a final goodbye to Kay, he took off in the direction of his agency. Oh god, he had a lot of work. "Ground Zero, there's a patrol breach near the Asajiawa prefecture," Vernon called out. Katsuki leaped out of his chair in his office. Strapping his gauntlets on, he walked out of his office, looking around for her. "Vernon, where you fucking at?" "Right here." Her voice echoed from everywhere. He looked around, finding almost all the people in his agency either gone or passed out on the floor. He looked to his right, seeing Vernon passed out too. Where was this voice coming from? He felt a tap on his shoulder, turning back fast. He anticipated the attack and ducked. He saw a knife pierce the air above him, and out of reflex, knocked out the knees of the person in front of him. The person tripped over, and the knife fell useless on the floor. Assessing the person in front of him, he saw that it was a woman, and she was covered head to toe in black clothing, covering her hair too, but a strand of it was outside. And he saw it was blonde. She had on black goggles, but they were clear enough for him to see the color of her eyes, blood red. It was Himiko Toga. He heard a giggle before she was gone again. How? Her quirk had something to do with BLD. At least that much he remembered, not speed. And didn't she die? He'd seen her name in the list of casualties after the League of Villains was disbanded completely, alongside Shigaraki. She reappeared again, but this time had no knives on her. She seemed to be hiding something behind her back. You're so cute, Katsuki. I really like you. I wanted to spend more time with you, but Sensei didn't want me to do anything to you. But oh, the BLD, it just looks so good on you. Can I taste it?" she said, moving closer to him with every word. "You crazy beach. I'll blow you up." "The fuck you hiding behind your back?" "Huh," Katsuki said, aiming his hands at her. He was just about to blow, but Toga moved back with her apparent speed quirk, moving in a zigzag motion that made it hard to aim. So adorable. "I'll be seeing you soon, Katsuki," she managed to say, right in his ear. She disappeared just like that. Katsuki pressed on his comms. "Yusutafu Police Center, can you hear me?" "Yes, Ground Zero, what's the problem?" "My agency was ambushed by the villain Himiko Toga. Everyone in the agency except me is passed out. Drugged, I think." He reached down and pressed his hand to Vernon's pulse, seeing it beating normally. Vitals are normal, but they're all unresponsive. "Sending backup." There was a bit of hesitation on the other line. "Are you sure the villain named Himiko Toga is the one who ambushed you?" "Yes, she's dead. I'm aware. I don't fucking know how she's alive, but she's got a speed quirk now, and she managed to just disappear into thin air, and I think she came for something, and got it too." "All right, 2 ambulances and a police team are arriving in about 5 minutes. Stay put." He looked around the agency, seeing that no one was conscious except for him. Wouldn't it be more effective for Toga to knock everyone out and get whatever it was that she wanted? Why keep him conscious? He heard the police pull up. He stumbled to the doorstep, realizing that his leg was injured somehow. "Ground Zero, are you all right?" Some police officer called out to him. "Go check on the other extras first. I'll be fine." The police officer nodded, probably realizing that it was useless fighting against Ground Zero. Katsuki leaned against a wall, pulling up his pant leg to look at his calf. There was a gash, and it was bleeding. He inspected the wound, and figured that it wasn't made by the fight, but rather deliberate to get him to bleed faster. He felt chills go down his back. Toga had come here for his BLD, and she'd got it. Panicked, he pulled out his phone and dialed Tsukachi. "Ground Zero, what's the matter? Is Nahara Minji still in custody?" "Yes, I suppose so, but why?" "Go check on her right fucking now, and tell me if she's there." He heard rustling on the other line, and then a gasp. She isn't. What the hell, bakugou? What's going on? Come to my agency, we were ambushed. I'll fill you in. Alright. Kay was having a good day. As far as it went, Haz was coloring quietly on one side, and she was sitting next to him, glaring at anyone who wanted to bully him. She'd realized early on that Haz didn't have any friends. The other kids bullied him for his different colored eyes, although Kay really didn't understand why they were pretty eyes. She saw a girl approach her. Her name was Hiken. If Kay was right, her hair was pulled into a tight bun, and she had on a cheap ballerina costume, complete with sparkly accents and ballerina shoes. Her nose was upturned as high as it could be, and Kay could almost see all the gunk up there. Why don't you come and hang out with us, bakugou? We're much better than Screw Up over there. He's got different colored eyes and doesn't do anything except color. Is he mute? Does he even talk to you? She remembered her father telling her very clearly that bullying was wrong back when she'd first started daycare, and realized what the other kids were doing to Haz and told her dad. He said that she should stand up against the bullies, but she shouldn't engage in violence unless she had to. Otherwise, she wouldn't be any better than them. No, I don't wanna. I like Haz. The girl raised her nose even higher, if that was still possible, and a malicious expression crossed her face. So you wanna marry Screw Up? This apparently got Haz's attention. As he looked up in confusion at Kay, he stood up, closing his coloring book and putting it into his bag. He liked that one. He didn't want Hiken to tear it up. Kay stood up too, and although she was shorter than Hiken, she managed to look intimidating. Yeah, I'm going to marry Haz. Hazui looked at her in shock. Why would she want to marry him? She was so much more popular and fun than he was. She should want to marry someone else. Kay turned back around. Grabbing Haz's arm, she pulled him out of the corner. Haz, you want to marry me, right? She asked sharply. Why, yes, I guess. Me and Haz are married. And that means that you can't bully him anymore, Hiken. The whole class seemed rather shocked at having witnessed a declaration of marriage, aside from Hiken, who had a deepening scowl on her face. You can't just get married like that, silly. You need to have a full ceremony. Hazui felt Kay grip his hand harder. I'll do it. Just tell me how. The scowl on Hiken's face was wiped out in sheer shock. Well, I know how to do it. I just attended my mom's marriage. Well, let's do it then. The marriage process, according to Hiken, began with the bride walking down the aisle to the groom and everyone throwing flowers at her. However, as they were 5-year-olds in a daycare, they didn't exactly have the best materials for a wedding dress and flowers, which resulted in Hiken wrapping Kay in a bunch of newspapers and decorative card paper with all the skill of an amputated sculptor. Wattage, can you make some cotton for Kay to use as a veil? All right, said a girl with strangely cotton-like hair, as she started to produce more of it, grabbing scissors to cut it out. Meanwhile, all the guys in the class were in charge of making Haz a suit, which had to have a flower inside it. How do we make a suit? A boy with blue hair said. I don't know. Tegakari replied. A boy with red hair. Hazui just kind of stood there, unsure what was happening. Why weren't his classmates teasing him? But if he was being honest, the teasing was probably better than them staring him up and down. Hey Kengu, I have an idea. Let's just paint all of those newspapers black and cover his shirt with it. That'll work. Yeah, but we don't have enough black paint. We could probably just put a few swipes here and there. My uncle told me that darkness spread. And after a good 30 minutes, all the kids in the class sat down at their desks, which they'd parted midway to make an aisle. And all of them were holding crumpled pieces of paper as flowers. Hazui stood where the teacher would stand, wearing a newspaper suit that had a few swipes of black paint on it. And down the aisle came Kay, pieces of paper gently being thrown at her. She looked rather strange, with barely taped newspaper hanging off of her, hitched around her body by a hair clip that seemed to be tearing the paper. The more she moved, her face was covered by a piece of cotton, and Haz was surprised she could even see she was holding a newspaper roll vertically, which had more paper balls in there, which Hazui thought were supposed to be roses. He even saw one with a couple of red marks on it, and he could tell Hiken had really gone into the decor. As Kay finally made her way to him, she stood next to Haz, and Hiken started reading a few crayon-written lines off a piece of paper. I, Tanoshi Hiken, bless you as a couple in holy matrimony. Bakugou Katsuki, read your vows. Kay cleared her throat before very officially saying, I promise to not let anyone bully you ever. I will protect you forever, especially from you, Hiken. That last statement was met with a quick scowl from Hiken before she finally moved on to Hazui. Midoriya. Hazui, read your vows. Haz was quite like a deer in headlights. Everyone was staring at him, and he hadn't prepared vows beforehand. How dumb was he? I promise that I will always draw you pretty pictures, and I will always be your friend and keep you happy. I'll always get Dad to make you katsuden, and you can use my coloring books whenever you want. We'll, be best friends always. Being friends kinda ruins the point of marriage, you know, Hiken muttered under her breath, continuing loudly. Bakugou Katsuki, do you take Midoriya Hazui to be your husband? Yeah, Midoriya Hazui. Do you take Bakugou Katsuki to be your wife? I guess. You are now joined in holy matrimony. You may now kiss the bride. Wait, what? Hazui stuttered out. Yeah, you've gotta kiss her, only then it's official. But is it like, do I have to? Yeah, you do otherwise. There's no point, poor Kei won't even be able to take off the veil until you kiss her. Heizui looked at Kei, who seemed clueless about the whole situation, everything hidden from her by that goddamn cotton veil. Alright, I guess I'll do it. Heizui nervously walked up to Kei and pulled the piece of cotton off of her face. Kei's eyes were closed, and she was likely anticipating it. He just pressed his mouth to her cheek for less than a second. Okay, are we married now? Kei asked Heiken. He was supposed to kiss you on the mouth. Heiken whined. Oh, shut up, ballerina. You never specified that. Kei screamed at her. It's also gross, Heizui added. Fine, you're married. Yeah, I won't bully you anymore. Screw up. Call him Midoriya. Alright, sorry, Midoriya. Kei turned to Haz and said, I guess we're married now. What do we do? Haz shrugged. I'm coloring. Katsuki was sitting impatiently at the edge of an ambulance. Tsukachi had insisted on him receiving proper medical care for a little gash, with the excuse of, Toga is a dangerous criminal and we do not know where that knife has been. While it was not enough for Katsuki, it was certainly enough for the paramedics, who had proceeded to check his vitals and wrap him in a fucking blanket. Finally, Katsuki could see Tsukachi making his way towards the ambulance. With a smoke detector in hand, he took a seat next to Katsuki. Feeling better? Ground zero. I was fine. Tsukachi, nothing wrong with me. Alright then, so, do you want to know what happened? Of fucking course, Tsukachi. So it appears that Toga was able to hack the smoke detectors so they wouldn't go off when a sleeping gas was spread, or at least, that's what we think. So it's gotta be a long-term attack, which means I've got a mole in my fucking agency. Tsukachi nodded his head. Correct, we also aren't able to find out what the gas exactly was, because it didn't harm anyone at all, but it induced a very deep sleep, akin to a coma. Doctors are saying that the victims won't wake up for the next few weeks, at least, and they're completely unresponsive. So you're telling me my entire agency is incapacitated for the next month? Tsukachi sighed. In essence, yes. There goes my number 7 spot. Also yes. What about Nihara? How did she even escape? Tsukachi lowered his head. We have no idea. We'd put handcuffs on. And when we last had live updates on her, she was handcuffed to a metal table that was drilled into the ground. When I got your tip, found the empty room, the handcuffs weren't even broken, and it turns out the CCTVs stopped working sometime early morning, so we wouldn't know if anyone helped her. It made sense that Toga would want Nihara. Nihara could do practically anything with someone's BLD, as she'd already proven with the whole existence of Kei. He was honestly terrified because while he did get a basic overview of what her quirk was, he didn't know what it could do. Katsuki considered his next move he could tell the detective Nihara's quirk, and get himself involved in this case ordinarily. That was exactly what he would have done, but now he had a daughter, something to lose, someone who would lose a lot if he were to go and die. So, you gonna tell me her quirk? I'll get you on the case, and even you have to agree that it's getting out of hand now. Katsuki nodded. Give me today, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Alright, do you want protective custody until we've neutralized the threat? Mount me, give it to my daughter, I can handle myself. Tsukachi looked at the hero he'd seen bakugou since he was a mere 15 years old. And the man who sat before him was completely changed. He was willing to sacrifice being the best, and even staying alive, for the sake of a girl, albeit his daughter, whom he'd met maybe a month ago. That was the moment bakugou earned his respect, and he wasn't going to lose it easily. Of course, I'll send over an officer soon. Katsuki had been a bit late to pick Kei up from the daycare. What with the ambush, he hadn't even had the chance to switch out of his hero costume. As he rushed to the gates of the building, he saw Kei's caretaker at the gate, who had spotted him and was currently waving at him. He landed near the porch. I'm fucking late. Is Kei still in? Yes, and no problem. It happens once in a while, she answered, smiling and bowing. He walked in, turning to Kei's classroom. He was surprised to find pieces of crumpled paper on the ground, and his daughter wearing what seemed to be a paper-made wedding dress, which was essentially taped together. He also saw Heizui wearing a weird overlay of newspaper, similar to Kei, and she had a veil on. Haz, Kei, I'm here to pick you up. We're going to your parents. Haz, what happened here? Hi, Dad. You're late, but it's fine. Answer my question, Kei. What happened? Heizui absent-mindedly said. We got married. I kissed Kei on the cheek and all, so it's official. You did what, you little catch on? Do you want some more okonomiyaki? I made a lot. No, Deku. Some tempura, then. No, soba. I am not hungry. Deku, leave me the fuck alone. Katsuki was currently perched on the Midoriya's obnoxiously green couch. Kei and Haz were making an ungodly amount of noise in the neighboring room, and Katsuki was reading a brochure on mental health. Izuku resigned himself from the kitchen, washing his hands and going and sitting in front of Katsuki. Kachin, what happened at your agency? You still haven't told anyone. You think there's a reason for that, fucker? Izuku sighed, pouring himself some sake. Alright then. Kachin, I'll change the topic. Which school are you planning on putting Kei into? Katsuki's hand made its way to his head, massaging his temples. I haven't even thought about that. I fucking need to take her to a psychologist and quirk specialist and all that shit. Yeah, me and Acha haven't taken Haz to a quirk specialist. He's almost 6 now. It's about time. Izuku looked worried. Katsuki looked up at him and immediately felt guilty. It was partly his fault that Izuku was so scared of his son being quirkless. After all, the sheer amount of stress whenever the topic of Haz's quirk came up was obvious. Deku, Katsuki said. He didn't look up. Izuku, listen. He had his attention now. Haz is not going to be quirkless. It's getting rarer and rarer with every passing generation, and even if he is quirkless, it won't matter. An unreadable expression crossed Izuku's face, but it was clear that he did not believe Katsuki. Listen, fucker, it's my fault that you feel like being quirkless is a bad thing. Catch on. No, Izuku, it is my fault. I may have apologized. But that kind of fear doesn't just go away. A quirk isn't a person's whole life. It isn't a person's whole personality. It doesn't matter if they don't have one, and I'm telling you right now, if it turns out that Haz doesn't have a quirk, he's still going to go above and beyond all the other extras who try holding him back, because that's the kind of parents who are going to raise him. And that's who he is. Don't worry your ass off. There was silence, and then Izuku's lips started wobbling, and Izuku started crying. Damn it, Deku, why'd you have to start crying? Huh, shitty nerd. Kei-chan, I had no idea. Oh fuck me. Eventually, Izuku had stopped crying. He pulled out a napkin from his pocket. Blowing his nose rather loudly, Katsuki resumed reading his brochure, and Izuku drank his sake. And then they noticed something. Complete silence. Kachan, do you? Izuku said, giving Katsuki a look. Yeah, Deku, they're being way too fucking quiet, Katsuki spoke, putting his brochure down. They both got up, cautiously making their way to Haz's room. You could probably hear a pin drop, and then there was a whisper on the other side. Haz, we're in big trouble. Yeah, Kei, how am I going to tell Dad that I? Katsuki burst through the door. What did you brats do? He yelled. Izuku opened the door to a charred room, with almost everything burnt, and all the burnt objects piled on top of each other. Floating in the center of the room, Kei, too, was floating, sitting on top of a floating armchair. Katsuki laughed, and Izuku glared at him. Well, Deku, sounds like you have nothing to worry about. Your kid's got a quirk. All right. Hello, Mr. Midoriya, I'm Dr. Bioin Atsuka. Am I correct to assume that your son, Midoriya Hazui, manifested his quirk earlier today? Yes. Izuku was currently in a quirk specialist's clinic after the earlier incident with Hazui, who was sitting next to him right now. He'd managed to drag Katsuki along with him to meet with the same doctor after Hazui. Could you tell me what exactly you had observed when you saw him use his quirk? Well, I didn't see him use it. I just walked in and saw the aftermath. And what would that be? His room was completely burnt, and all the objects in the room were floating at one place. All right. Dr. Bioin turned to Hazui. Hello, Hazui, I'm your quirk doctor. You can call me Dr. Bioin if you want. Now can you tell me how exactly you used your quirk? Hazui looked a bit shy, but he answered her question anyway. I was with my best friend, Kei, and we were playing tag in my room, and she's taller than me, so she was able to run fast. And I wished I could float her like my mom floats me whenever I run. And then Kei was floating. And then she got angry and said it was unfair, and then I got angry, and then I just kind of, made fire. The doctor pulled out a notepad, jotting everything down at breakneck speed. Very good, so you just wished you could make her float, and she started floating. Yeah. And when you got angry, did you hold out your hand when you made fire? Touch something for it to catch on fire, perhaps? No, it just, there was just fire. All right, Hazui. She pulled a chocolate from a jar on her table. Good job here. Take a chocolate. You can go outside and wait with your friend if you want. Hazui turned to Izuku. Can I, Dad? Of course, kiddo. Izuku ruffled his hair. Uncle Katz is just sitting outside. You can play with Kei. Once Hazui had left the room, Dr. Bioin started speaking. Mr. Midoriya, could you tell me the quirks in your family? Preferably your and your spouse's quirks and Hazui's grandparents' quirks. Feel free to skip over yours. I'm sure all of Japan already knows yours, she said, giving him a teasing look. Izuku laughed nervously. Sure. My wife, her quirk is called zero gravity. It lets her manipulate the gravity of things and make them float on contact. My mother can attract and repel small things. And my father breathed fire. Achako's mother can fly a little, and her father can make things heavier. There was more jotting on the notepad. All right, that is helpful. Would you like a rough analysis of your son's quirk? I think I've figured out enough factors which I can recommend for you to narrow down the details. Yes, that would be great. Dr. Bioin leaned back a little in her chair. It seems that Hazui has a mixture of his mother's quirk, his paternal grandfather's quirk, and paternal grandmother's quirk. The quirk he's manifested presumably allows him to manipulate both gravity and fire, similar to zero gravity. He can make objects weightless or manipulate their gravitational fields. He might even be able to make them heavier. She looked back at her notepad. And from what I can tell, he can probably create gravitational fields that attract or repel towards or from a specific point, similar to your mother's gravity pull. And what would you say about the whole fire aspect of it? Izuku asked. Well, it seems that the only thing really common between your father and Heizui's quirk is the fact that they're both pyro-based otherwise. They're completely different quirks. Heizui's quirk is rather rare since most pyro-based quirks require their users to use their bodies to create or control fire. But it seems that Heizui can just conjure fire as he wants obviously. This is just a theory. It would require some testing for us to be sure, but that is what seems most plausible right now. Alright, then could you recommend some exercises for us to figure out what exactly his quirk is? Yes, I would suggest that you start first by seeing how the gravity part of his quirk works. Since your wife has a very similar quirk, then I would try to find someone with a similar fire quirk and get more details on the fire part, then start working on whether they are interrelated. I'll be forwarding a list of things to look out for each time you do this on your mail. Thank you so much, Doctor. Dr. Bioin smiled at Izuku. No problem at all, Pro Hero Deku. Izuku beamed at her. Dad, where are we going? Kei said, tugging at Katsuki's pants. They had just finished meeting with the quirk specialist. And while she was helpful, there wasn't much she could really do without Kei's quirk having manifested. She did forward Katsuki a list of things to look out for in Kei's manifestation based on his family's quirks. We're going to a mental health specialist. Now, he was on his way to meet with a psychologist, and he'd learned that if you mentioned complicated words around Kei, she would take them at face value and pry no further. So, I'm going to someone who will check my head. Spot on, Brett. They approached the psychologist's building, which was in a rather shady place, but Katsuki was low on money, at least until Kei got busier and could pick up extra missions and shifts, and he had to divide spending it on Kei's health, as well as sending her to a good school, so a shady place would have to do. Besides, he'd gotten advice from Aizawa that this therapist was pretty good with traumatized children. She'd been referenced by Hound Dog, apparently. He stepped into the building, seeing a woman beside the elevator. She was sitting on a desk, looking at a few papers. Where's Dr. Hito's floor? Are you Bakugou Katsuki? Yeah, where is she? Third floor. Take this card. She handed him a card with his name on it. He made his way to the elevator, Kei still clinging to his pant leg. He'd gotten used to it by now. In all honesty, he felt unnerved whenever he couldn't feel her weight on his leg. They reached the third floor, and at once, Katsuki was shocked. The whole place was made of marble, with high ceilings, tasteful decor, and expensive lamination. And was that a Van Gogh painting he just passed? How the fuck was such a nice floor in such a dingy building? Was this the right therapist, or had he been an idiot and gotten her name wrong? He pulled out his phone, clicking on the chat he had with Aizawa, looking at the name. Yup, Hito Rinai, third floor of Jinsono building. Chikara Road. Time to trust Aizawa's experience and instinct. He turned the corner, entering an air-conditioned room, finding a woman sitting on a chair. She had purple skin and blonde hair, but still looked distinctly Japanese. She was wearing a rather professional white dress, looking at some papers. Katsuki knocked on the door next to him. She looked up. You must be Mr. Bakugou. Yes, lovely. Take a seat, she said, pointing to the comfortable couch in front of her. So, you've come here by reference of Mr. Aizawa, I suppose? Yes, not a man of many words then. That's all right. So, she gestured to Kei. It's your daughter who requires my services? No. Yes. All right then, Mr. Bakugou. As you know, these sessions will have to be done without you in the room, as they aren't group therapy. However, if it makes you and Kei more comfortable, it's perfectly all right for you to be here for the first few. Dr. Hito had a smiling, relaxed face and a comfortable demeanor about her. Katsuki wouldn't go to the lengths of saying he trusted her immediately, but he did feel right about her being Kei's therapist. Is it fine if Dad's here with me? Kei asked Hito. Of course so. Why don't you tell me a bit about yourself? Kei sat a little straighter. My name is Bakugou Katsuki, but everyone calls me Kei. I'm 5 right now, but I'm gonna turn 6 in December, and I really like talking to people, and I like flying, and I like my dad. Katsuki turned a bit at that. That's wonderful. So how have you been adjusting to your new arrangements? I like the apartment we live in. There's always a lot of sun, and I can play all the time, but Dad read newspapers, but I like that too. It has fun news about heroes. So you like heroes, Kei? Do you want to be one like your dad? At that, Kei dulled a bit. I don't know yet. Hito remained radiant as ever. That's perfectly all right. Taking a bit more of a serious tone, she said, now, if you're willing, would you like to talk about your life before you met your dad? It's all right if you don't want to. Kei was visibly a bit shaken. It was dark, and no one talked to me. Your mom. She used to come home almost every day, but we never talked, because she was always quiet. I see. I've been told you had a brother. Kei went completely silent at that. It made sense. After all, the only reason her mother had been brought into custody was because she had killed her own son. Who was Kei's brother? It's okay if you don't want to go into that just yet. We don't have to. At all, you can tell me at any point if things get too uncomfortable. Kei nodded, and some color returned to her face. Now, was there anything that you liked about that life? Not really, but there was this swimming pool that me and Toshi would sneak into at night with Auntie Miko sometimes. Who is Auntie Miko? She was the nice lady who lived in the flat next to ours. She knew our mom. I think whenever mom didn't come home, she'd stay the night with us and make me and Toshi dinner. Did you like her? She wasn't very nice-ish, glared at me whenever I wanted to talk to her, but she loved Toshi. How did that feel for you? Remember, if you get too uncomfortable, we can stop. Kay looked at her feet. It made me feel bad, but Toshi always made sure I got dinner, and he talked to Auntie Mika for me if I needed something, so it wasn't that bad. It seemed that Hito had realized that she wasn't going to get much more out of this session. Or it could have simply been that she saw how Katsuki was looking at Kay. Neither of them were really ready for this, and that was fine. It was her job to solve this. Well, I suppose we can end this session right here, Kay. What's your favorite fantasy? Kay immediately perked up. Fantasy? What do you mean? Hito chuckled lightly, as in, any particular thing that doesn't really exist, but you want it to. I really like nymphs, like river nymphs, you know what I mean. Yes, now, if you go outside, you'll see why I asked you that question. Kay was almost jumping with joy. Can I take my dad with me? Well, I suppose you could, but the nymph is pretty shy. Well, I'll go by myself then. Bye, Dad. I'll tell you when to come out, Kay said, leaving the room. Stay on this floor, brat. Yeah. Katsuki turned to Hito. What was that about the nymph? Hito chuckled. Well, you see, I have an illusion quirk. I just conjured up a little river nymph for her to talk to. That's nice of you. So what are your observations? Hito looked at her notepad. Well, most of the things you've observed check out. It's probable that the reason she's so uncharacteristically talkative for an abused child is because no one talked to her at all, except her brother. Hito saw the look on Katsuki's face. It's not a bad thing at all. It's good that she wants to talk to people. In fact, I would recommend that you make sure she gets out of the house plenty. I'll do that. Then Katsuki nodded. Yes, my assistant will be reaching out to you with a few proposed times for our sessions. I hope we meet again soon. Yes, Katsuki got up to leave. Ah, Mr. Bakugou, don't I get a thanks? He turned back around to look at Hito. She sat on her couch, her skin shining in the fluorescent light of her room. One leg crossed over the other, a smirk playing on her face. If Mina was the voice inside his head, she'd probably say something along the lines of, damn, she's hot, get with her. But Katsuki was inside Katsuki's head and his voice said, nope, daughter's therapist, off limits. Thanks, Dr. Hito. Call me Renai, Mr. Bakugou. Thanks, Renai. Katsuki left. It was night. Kay was sleeping soundly next to him. After a rather eventful day, she'd had daycare. Then Heizui's quirk manifested, then she went to the quirk doctor, and then a therapist, and finally some butterscotch ice cream from a konbini. He was under the blankets, practically unable to fall asleep. He'd put Kay to bed around 8:30, despite much resistance, and he started his attempts at sleep at around 11. He was, obviously, not successful. Suddenly, his phone started ringing very loudly. He threw the covers off of himself and left the room as quickly as he could. Sukachi, what led you to call me at 3 fucking? Apologies. Ground Zero. Well, there's been a development in your daughter's case. Back when she lived with her mother and brother, there was a third person in the picture to make sure the kids were fed whenever Nahara wasn't around. Her name was Tomiko Hoga, and she went by Auntie Miko. You're fucking kidding me, Katsuki spat. There's more, and if you felt like Tomiko Hoga sounds familiar, you're right. We investigated near the place where she lived and found out that she was a 26-year-old woman. Blonde hair, red eyes, pale skin. There was a pause, and a BLD-related quirk. Katsuki stepped onto the balcony. So you're fucking telling me that the BLD beach was around my daughter all the time? Yes, Bakugou, we also suspect that your daughter's brother was Toga's child, due to their very similar appearances, and he was said to also have a BLD-related quirk. However, he was confirmed Nahara's child by a maternity test. Bakugou, you have to tell us Nahara's quirk to make sense of this. Katsuki considered again. Now that this case seemed to get closer and closer to his daughter being in danger, he had a real reason to get in it and make sure that they fucking did everything right. Frkin, fine. Sukachi, I'll tell you her quirk, on the same condition that I be made part of the investigation. Katsuki heard a sigh over the phone. All right, tomorrow, 3 p.m., police center. Katsuki stepped back in and went back to his room, looking at Kay spread out like a starfish over the bed, sleeping peacefully. He had to keep her safe.